Hey everyone, CWD Music Reviews here. I'm CWD and this is going to be a music review of the new Tegan Sara album, Love You to Death. Tegan and Sara are a Canadian indie rock, indie pop, recently electropop duo, and this is their latest full-length album. This was also their second going into this genre of synth pop and electropop, of which I never really hopped on when they put that out in 2013. I can't remember the album title. But everything is worth a chance, I suppose. Especially since I just thought the Everything Is Awesome song that was on the Lego movie was pretty okay. It was pretty interesting. For reasons that had little to do with Tegan and Sara themselves, but regardless, it was a decent tune. So going into this new album, I didn't really know what to expect, really. Didn't really have much of any expectations, seeing as on the superficial level, it's a 30-minute long album. Like, the average track here is about 2 to 3 minutes long and not really showing a lot of ambition. So I thought, okay, well, let's see what they got going for them. But unfortunately, I can't say that they've got much of anything going for them. This is actually a chore to get through in terms of listening and eventually reviewing. Right out of the gate, when you get to the first track, That Girl, it already highlights like the big two reasons why I do not like this album at all. The instrumentation and the vocals. On the former part, pretty much track for track, you get these 80s new wave and synth revivalism sounds that really don't go much of anywhere other than set an atmosphere, set like a tone or something. And that tone isn't particularly emotional or engaging. Tracks like That Girl, Faint of Heart, U-Turn, and Hang On to the Night, they pretty much recycle and repeat these rudimentary and really uninteresting 80s synth patterns that don't really go much of anywhere. They don't have very little to any progression about them, and it just seems really formulaic for the 2 to 3 minutes each track runs. And in that regard, they just don't really feel like that they're 2 to 3 minutes. They actually feel like they're longer, and that doesn't really sit well with me. The only track here that abandons this formula to a certain degree is 100 Times, which by default is the only track instrumentally that I think is decent or kind of like. It's pretty much a piano ballad, and it does its thing well. The piano sounds pretty in the moment and intimate in a way, though the vocals don't really work with this track particularly well, or any of the tracks here. The singing on this album is easily the worst thing about the album. Number one, it's completely synthetic. Like, you'd have to have told me that this was a duo singing and not just one person multi-tracking their vocals. And number two, there's just no emotion to any of these vocals. Like, there's no feeling to the love-struck themes that the album has as a whole. Take the track Boyfriend, which has easily my favorite lyrical sentiment on the album. Pretty much a track about how the protagonist feels like she is just a secret for this individual, I assume a woman, how she seems to treat her like a boyfriend, but it seems to confide in her like a best friend. You turn me on like a boyfriend, you trust me like your best friend, and she's just fed up with it. She doesn't want to, be this secret anymore, she doesn't want to, be this mystery lesbian encounter slash mistress or whatever. But the thing is, the vocals don't really emphasize the lyrical fed upness, if that's a word, that the track seems to imply. And there's other lyrical moments on this album that I like too, like BWU, which seems to be about how she doesn't really want to get married right now, at least have a white wedding at the moment, or she doesn't seem to want it at all. She just wants to be with this individual. Essentially saying, and this is probably my favorite line in the album, she doesn't need a ring on her finger, she's already under her skin. And that's particularly it, really. There's not really much of anything to say about this record. It's brief, it uses dated synth melodies that harken back to the 80s way too much. The lyrics are okay, as well as the instrumentation is okay-ish, but there's not enough variation or progression amongst these instrumentals that really interest me in any way. Even if these are all okay, the vocals really add nothing to what it is the album is trying to go for. And unfortunately, due to its synthetic nature and lack of any emotion, it seems to completely undermine what it is they're saying if the really lackluster instrumentation didn't already do that. So yeah, I didn't particularly care much for this album. I didn't really expect to like be in love with this album or anything like that, but I didn't really expect to be like this let down over something I just had little to any expectation for. If you're a Tegan and Sara fan, if you liked their 2013 release, then you'll definitely get something out of it. But as for me personally, this essentially just sounds like if the band Churches were never good or never particularly interesting. This album is a negative 2.1 out of +3. It just seems like a chore getting through the whole 32-ish minutes, and I don't particularly plan on returning to it. But if you've given this album a listen, what'd you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was your reasoning for that, and what should I consider listening to and reviewing next? CW Music Reviews here, signing off.